Welcome to LWCC. For those of you I've not met, I'm KRISTIN Wall, the company's president and CEO. It's an honor and a privilege to be here with all of you today. In the room, we are joined by many of Governor Foster's family, closest friends, as well as members of the LWCC Board of Directors and Executive Leadership Team. Many are also joining us virtually. These attendees represent LWCC employees, agent partners, policyholders, and community leaders, many of whom knew Governor Foster personally. Even those who didn't get a chance to know him have benefited from his vision, passion, and work. This legacy is going to be celebrated today. One of Governor Foster's greatest accomplishments was this company. Before we go any further with today's program, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the LWCC to show you how his bold vision became a reality. LWCC was formed by the legislature in 1991 as a private company and began operations in 1992. It's hard to believe that we'll be celebrating 30 years of operations just next year. I started in 1992 with the company as a managing claims attorney. It's amazing to me to see how far LWCC has come and the state has come. The workers' comp market in 1991 was in terrible shape. Employers could not get consistent coverage, especially small employers, and the escalating cost of coverage made it almost impossible for them to stay in business. Not only did it affect employers, but inconsistent access to coverage also affected injured workers. They depended upon a consistent, ready marketplace to make sure they got their medical benefits on time and their indemnity benefits as well. As a business owner, Governor Foster understood these challenges very well, and he actually ran for a seat in the Louisiana Senate to fix this crisis. Who would do that? He did that. He experienced firsthand the lack of a steady, ready marketplace. Once in office, he immediately engaged Senate counsel to research all of the workers' compensation funds across the country. He knew that there was a best-in-class solution for Louisiana, and he was determined to find it. He authored a constitutional amendment and the legislation that created LWCC as a private mutual insurance company. That set us up for the future sustainable success. With a strong resolve on excellence and execution, LWCC not only survived, and some thought we might not, but we've actually thrived. Without ever taking a taxpayer dollar, we're now the largest work comp carrier in the state. And you know what? The market is stable, healthy, and competitive, and rates in Louisiana have gone down by 60%. Governor Foster's role in the success of the company did not stop at his formation. He was an active board member, and he encouraged growth for LWCC and for our state. He returned to his board member in 2011. We were glad to have him back. And in 2014, he was elected chairman of the board, which he served for 2 years. While most of us here knew Governor Foster, we'd like to ask a few individuals to share their appreciation for him and the impact he had on all of us and on our great state. Allow me to introduce to you Stephen Perry. He's the current president and CEO of New Orleans & Company, formerly the New Orleans Convention and Visitors Bureau. When we reached out to Mrs. Alice Foster and asked her for speaker recommendations, she immediately said Stephen. They'd become close friends and remain close friends. Stephen was his chief of staff for 7 years and worked a total of 11 years with Governor Foster. He got to know him quite well, and I'm sure he has a few stories. Please help me welcome Stephen Perry.
See if I can do this without kind of choking up. When I think about Mike, it's like talking about my other father. You know, he was such an extraordinary human being. And I think the greatest thing about him was the fact that he was very simple and very complex all at the same time. And he was a person of complete principle who, in fact, it's so funny. I will always remember after the 4 years I'd worked for, in fact, when I'd come back from New England and gone to work for the Senate, it was because BOYSIE had called the Senator, Leonard Chabert, on the other side of the aisle. And then that next election, and I guess it was fall of 91, Mike ended up coming and becoming Commerce Committee and asked me to come take over that committee and deals with business affairs. But we're sitting in the back of the Senate in the chamber one day when Mike leans over to me and goes, "Hey, I'm thinking about running for governor. What do you think?" And I burst out laughing. And he said, "What are you surprised?" And I said, "Well, you are not the most mediagenic person that I know." And I said, let's talk. Because he knew that I had had a lot of experience in political campaigns and fundraising with the Republican Party, both nationally and in the state, and worked for Boysie's dad when he was party chair. And it was, we talked about it, and all of a sudden we decided, yeah, let's all do it. And there was never, have any of us ever seen a person go from 1% to 2% to 4% to 6% to 8% to 12 to 16 to 20 and finish first in the initial primary. It was one of the most extraordinary stories. And he had probably the most uncanny knack of understanding the voter of any human being I've ever seen at any level of politics. And that was, we were all surprised because we were all either independents, few Republicans, Democrats, and Mike was a Democrat all his life, which people forgot. And 1 week before the election, he goes and changes it. Well, at qualifying, actually, he changed his registration. And we're like, he said, "Trust me, just watch what happens." I said, "All right." So as time went on, most governors get really involved in granular details. Mike was about big picture. He was like the chairman of the board and the CEO all in one. And what he wanted to do and what he charged us with is go find the smartest people you can and get them involved. So we hired kids from Rice, from Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown, Vanderbilt, Oxford, London School of Economics, average age 26 years old. That's absolutely incredible. I mean, these are babies. Of course, we weren't that. I was 40, so I felt like I was really old. But as we did this and we started to work for this man, it gelled into one of the most extraordinary 8 years of actually getting things done in Louisiana history. Because Mike didn't worry about the politics. He worried about doing what made sense. It was always about being practical. And there's a funny story, at the beginning with a new governor, and you're his chief of staff, and you're trying to cross every T and dot every I, which was impossible with him. One morning, the press, which had figured him out pretty quickly, they knew that at 11:55 his stomach went off, and it was time to come down the governor's elevator and get in the car and go to the mansion and eat. So usually I'd go with him. We came down the elevator. Those doors open there at the corner downstairs, and there are 15 reporters with TV cameras. Must have been 5 or 6 TV cameras, lights, and my heart sunk. I felt like I fell down an elevator shaft because I didn't have him prepared. Not that he really wanted you to prepare him. We tried to prepare him a lot more than he actually wanted to be prepared, but I was scared to death. And the first reporter, a young woman, I think she was from Lafayette, she thrust a microphone in his face, and she said, "Governor, the bill to ban cockfighting was up in the House right now. It's so inhuman. What is your position?" And I thought to myself, oh my God, no wonder I missed this. And I thought, and I looked at him and said, we need to get in the car. And he goes, no, it's an interesting thing. Those Kentucky Fried chickens? They grow up in a little bitty cage. They get hung upside down. They get their throats cut and bleed out. Then they put into a defeathering machine. Then they get chopped up, and then you drop them in hot oil and you eat them. And those cockfighting roosters? They live free range. They go fight and have a little fun, and then they get put out to stud. He said, "I'm not sure which is more humane." And those reporters looked and went, nobody had a follow-up, nobody had a word, nothing they could say. We just got in the car, the state police got out, looked at each other and went, that's our man. And that's the way he would, you know, a lot of people remember after 9/11, it was such a difficult time, and we have fire engine building companies here in Louisiana. I think the one that we got them from was somewhere over toward Hammond somewhere. But we raised the money to buy 2 of them, and the governor went with them going up the East Coast to deliver them to the New York Fire Department. And they stayed over at the White House. You know, he went to see, because he had known President Bush, and they were governor of Texas, and he had been a governor, had been over, and we'd spent a lot of time with him, and Mike had been rabbit hunting with him somewhere not far from where he lives. And they had such a good relationship, and he loved Mike. And you know, Mike went on to New York and did it, and about 3 weeks later, that's a long setup for this, but about 3 weeks later, he and I are sitting in his office on the 4th floor, and we're working on something. I can't remember what it was we were working on. But Lori comes running in, and she says, I guess this is real. It's that person says they're the operator on Air Force One. And Mike looked at me and said, do we do something? I said, no, everything is good. And so he said, Lori, put him through. So we're just sitting there. And you get the operator, connects him. Mike answers, yes, this is Governor Foster. And she said, please hold for the President of the United States. And I'll never forget this. He and I are looking at each other going, oh my gosh, what is this going to be? And President Bush comes on. Mike, how are you? He said, you know, I'm flying out to the West Coast, and I just want to see how you were, tell you how good it was to see you and Alice. And, you know, and he talked for a couple minutes, and then he got real quiet. And he said, Mike, look, I gotta tell you something. Just trying to keep it between you and me. He says, since you were here, well, the only way to tell you is there's some silverware missing. And Mike was so nervous that all of a sudden he broke out laughing, and the president broke out laughing. And that's the kind of relationship that he built with those people. And it didn't matter if you were president of the United States or if you were somebody that worked in any level of his companies or just somebody he'd meet. For Mike, it was all about being real and being genuine. And nobody has ever given staff the latitude that we had. Angel remembers. And all he wanted you to do was go push the envelope. Go do new things. He's got the things he wanted to do, civil law reform, you know, when we did the technical college system creation, which was amazing. And I'll never forget Mike because he would never the governor doesn't go testify normally. But he did go testify on the motorcycle helmet bill. And I'll never forget the questioning he got, because everybody thought, there's no way they're going to pass removing the helmet requirement law. And he went there, I forgot whether it was in the House or Senate, they were asking him, why do you keep pushing this? Why do you want this? He said, because wearing a helmet's not safe. And they said, well, Governor, how's that possible? He said, well, I can't hear anything when that helmet's on. I can't look to I can't be swiveling around on the helicopter all the time. And we just thought, and people, they don't know how to respond to him. It's like when his staff challenged him about taking helicopter lessons. You know, he already had a fixed wing license, but he didn't have his helicopter license. And he flew all the time on the helicopter. And finally, one day I just asked him, I said, Mike, why are you taking formal lessons? And he said, you know what, it's really for my own safety. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, think about it, Steve. What if something happened to that old guy that state police helicopter pilot? I said, Mike, that man is 18 years younger than you are. And he said, well, it doesn't matter. I need to know. And, you know, that's a glimpse, whether it's law school, whether it's learning to weld, whether it's repairing a tractor, whether it's being an emergency medical technician, whether it's being any of those things. He was a person of insatiable curiosity and wanting to learn. And, I mean, he used to tell us stories. It was so funny. He would go out, and most people don't know this, he would actually go out with us and eat dinner sometimes. And he'd wear his blue jeans and his leather jacket, and he would walk in and people would turn because they were thinking, wait, is that the guy that worked on my plumbing the week before? And then they realized, oh, my God, that's the governor. Because he looks like a regular guy. He wouldn't wear a suit when he went out. And he would sit and he would tell stories. And he would tell stories about, look, he wasn't necessarily the most gentle person in the world. You know, he liked a good fight. And he would talk about some of the fights he'd been in. And we used to have these jokes about when we were in at the same time as Jesse Ventura, the wrestler and actor as governor in Minnesota. And we used to go back and forth with their staff going, our governor can beat up your governor. And they go, no. I said, no, you hadn't seen the legs and the low center of gravity on our governor. And every one of y'all that knows exactly what I'm talking about. You couldn't knock him off a dime. Anyway, you know, it's instead of talking about things seriously today, what I just wanted to do was relate a few stories about who the man was, because he was an extraordinary inspiration. And, you know, that staff that was put together has gone on to do great things. I mean, be chiefs of staff to other governors, to mayors, to the president of Baton Rouge Area Chamber, Adam, who was on Andy's staff. You know, I've had the opportunity for 20 years to manage a $10 billion enterprise with 100,000 employees, which has been incredible. But the interesting thing about how the people on our staff reacted to Mike was they went over and beyond to achieve and to make him proud, because the biggest fear was not making a mistake. It was failing to make him proud of what you were doing. That's the way everybody thought. And I got to tell you that it would embarrass, if he heard this, it would mortify him and he would scowl at me. I got to tell you, I loved that man, and everybody that worked for us did. And it's a shame he couldn't have been governor for about 20 years, because he was, you know, we had a chance to fix so many things and get so many things headed right, and we'll always be indebted to him. And to this building, you know, this is still his greatest pride and joy. You know, everybody knows the stories about Tony Garisco and home and not returning phone calls and why he ran and wanting to fix things. He taught me something that I've used over and over again in speeches. We talking about, you know, a lot of people in politics get to talking about things like jobs, people, business, and some people are anti-business because they're pro-job. And it makes me think about what Mike told me. He said, unless you're a poet, a writer, or a painter, there is no job without a business. So I don't understand. We have to be for both. And that has been, to me, a life lesson, because they don't exist without each other. And this was certainly one of the fundamental underpinnings of a business being able to operate in the state of Louisiana, and something that was one of his greatest pride and joy. So it's great to see. I've seen some old friends and folks I hadn't seen in ages and ages. It's so good to see you. I'm sorry we can get to see Randy or Miss Alice. But, guys, I feel like we're all blessed to have been a part of his life. I can't believe how much Murphy, now that Murphy's over 40, starting to look like Mike. You know, I guess as we all go, we start to look. I mean, I literally did a double take and a hard swallow when Murphy came in. But anyway, I'm gonna stop there, because I could tell stories for years and years. He kept us absolutely in stitches sometimes. You don't think about him being funny. But I'm going to leave you with this last thing. Mike wasn't real good with women things. And I don't know if y'all knew that. But if there was ever a man's man, it was Mike. And all the little stuff on the side and things that dealt with women and their lives are not things that he really got. Well, Brandy Bollinger, who ran governmental affairs for us, was pregnant at the end of the first term. And I can remember Mike and I were sitting there at lunch, and Brandy was well along and about ready to leave to have the baby. And she came in and sat down with us, said, Mike, I just want to come and hug you. I'll be gone tomorrow. I'm going to have the baby. And he kind of looked at her, and he looked at me, looked back at her, and said, are you going to be out all week? And Brandy looked at him, and I looked at him, and he was dead serious. You going to be out all week? He said, well, I had people working for me that would be back in a week. And she just said, you know what, it's not 1947 anymore, and we're not cutting cane. And we just I got to tell you, if there was anybody in the world that I'd love to sit down for an hour and tell stories with and reminisce with, it would be him. And we thank him for all that he has done for business, for education, because I don't think ever in the history of Louisiana has a pro-business and pro-education governor come together in the manner that Mike did. And anyway, those are the end of the stories I'll tell for now. So thank you guys so much, and it's an honor to be here.
Thanks, Stephen. I think we knew the same guy about 10 or 15 years later, but he didn't change at all. So all of those same stories. Never heard the cockfighting story. That was a new one. I appreciate you sharing all those things, though. Get this back on. So it is my pleasure now to introduce to you a really good friend of mine. He was recruited. He was recruited to the LWCC board. The governor had gone off and gotten elected as governor. And so he decided he was going to leave the board. It was kind of inconsiderate of him. But he looked, and he finally said, I know who we've got to have. And he recruited BOYSIE Bollinger. And I'm going to tell you what, that was the best thing that could have ever happened to us when he came on. He's been a great mentor. Like Governor Foster, very forward-thinking. Like Governor Foster, very safety-minded oriented. Like Governor Foster, really pulled out the best in people. So I want to welcome my very good friend back to LWCC, BOYSIE Bollinger.
Thank you, KRISTIN. I never prepare remarks, so it's good because as Steve was talking, all these memories came back. Steve was my brother-in-law, and he was the finance director of the Republican Party. Leonard Chabert was my senator. And Leonard came to me and he says, I need a lawyer to run my committee. And I said, I got a guy in mind. He said, who's that? I said, Steve Perry. He's not a lawyer, and he's a Republican. He's actually the finance director of the Republican Party. And Leonard got a little white in the face. He was pretty dark complected. I said, look, Leonard, just meet him. Leonard hired him. And that's the way Steve got to know Mike Foster and worked for Mike Foster. So those relationships really go back a long ways. When Mike was fishing a lot, he had Sammy Nunes down, one of his fellow senators. Sammy and I had been friends for many, many years, and they came over to visit me on my houseboat, and I didn't even know Mike. And so I got to know him and really liked him, and he told me he was thinking about running for governor. And I said, well, I'm pretty active politically around Louisiana, and I never met you till today. I'm surprised you, I don't know how you're going to get any traction. Well, fast forward, I'm taking a nap one afternoon on Grand Isle after probably too many beverages at lunch. My phone rings. There was no cell phones then, and it was Harry Lee. And he said, is Mike Foster there? I said, no, Harry, I think he's at his camp. Why? I want you to go tell him I'm not running for governor, which was a big deal, So I got in my golf cart and went over and woke Mike up, who was taking a nap, and I said, I just got a weird call from Harry Lee. He said he's not running for governor. And Mike said, really? Fast forward, as we got closer to the election period, I'm having a dinner with Mike, and Bernie Boudreau, Billy Nungesser, Dave Treen, and we're trying to talk Mike into switching parties. And he's listening very closely. He's about 2% in the polls now, and it's qualifying next week. And I'm fooling with a napkin after dinner, just keep rolling it up, and it's getting to be like a hard ball. And I said, you know, Mike, we don't have a Republican running, and you fighting amongst these Democrats. If you change parties, you're going to be very visible. And Dave Treen says, well, I might run. And I took that napkin and threw it at him and hit him in the forehead, knocked him out of his chair, thought I had knocked him out. And I said, you've been talking about running since you lost to Edwards, and you're not going to run. And, you know, the best chance we have is Mike Foster. Well, when he announced that switch, he jumped to 7%, Steve's little ladder, but it was a huge move to see the traction he got. And as we went through that campaign, I was really working hard for him and was shocked at how well people received him. And it was so much fun. And as KRISTIN said, he wins the office. I didn't even know he was on the LWCC board. And he called me one night. He was driving back to Franklin. Before he was sworn in, he said, I'm going to quit the board, and I want you to take my place. He and Aubrey were together. And I said, well, I don't know. What's it entail? And so he gave me a little bit of the success story. It was only 4 years old. The company was really new, but was really successful. And I said, okay. And, of course, I didn't realize I'd be here 21 years. I took over from Aubrey as chairman, and Mike was my vice chairman. So we worked closely together. And when he became the chairman, he would call me about every third morning and run some idea by me. And I said, that's a good idea, or might be, but that's not such a good idea. But he's always creative in his thinking, always challenged. And Steve was talking about that call from Air Force One. I was in Austin having lunch with Bush with a group of people, probably 30 or 40 people. And when the lunch ended, he said, stay back if you don't mind. So everybody left, and he says, you know, I'm governor here, and Foster's governor next door, but we don't really know each other well. And he says, I would like you to set up a meeting so that we can, not governor to governor, but friend to friend, you know, maybe a trip to fishing or something. So I said, okay. So I came back, called Mike on the phone, told him about it. He said, yeah, that's a good idea. We'll do it. This was in early summer. I'm in Europe and hunting, and this was 98 or 99, I guess. And the bartender comes find me in the bar in the hotel I was staying in. Cell phones didn't work over there, and he says, the governor's looking for you. No, I'm in Czech Republic. I don't know. The governor's looking for me. What you mean? The governor who? What? He said, I don't know. That's the only message I have. So I called Mike on the phone. I said, are you looking for me? Yeah, he's coming. I said, who's coming? Where is he? What you talking about? He said, Bush is coming. Oh, I said, great. He said, he's coming in February. I said, great. That's wonderful. He said, it ain't worth a damn. I said, why not? He said, we don't have any fish in February in Grand Isle. I said, Mike, it's not about fishing. It's about spending a weekend at the camp. Let's just get together. He said, I think I got some rabbits, though. And this is February. He said, I think we got some rabbits at the duck camp. So anyway, Bernie and I and John Falls is cooking. Mike gets in the state police helicopter to go pick up Bush in Abbeville. And the state police had said that the security for Bush, who was governor, would not allow the governor of Texas to fly in a non-Texas aircraft. So Mike says, I'm going to just see how much balls this guy's got. So he takes off in the helicopter, and he goes to Abbeville, and we all sit and wait for the helicopter to come back, because either they're going to come back with Bush, or Bush is going to come with his own motorcade down the highway from Abbeville to the hunting camp at Pecan Island. And the helicopter comes back and lands, and we're all looking through the window, and we see the back door open and that big old cowboy boot come out, and we go, yes, this is going to work well. And we spent a wonderful weekend together. It wasn't about the rabbits, but the show was about spending time. And they became good friends. And Bush's strategy was a smart one. He said, I want to get all the Republican governors, because if you get the governors, you get that campaign political staff to come with it. So him recruiting Mike as a friend was a strong we ended up, Mike and I decided we're going to bring, who was the party chairman then from Crowley? Mike Francis, and Red Davis, who was the executive director of the Republican Party. We were going to bring them to dinner, but not keep them, just send them out after dinner. So they come to dinner, and I watched Red Davis, who's the executive director of the Republican Party, quiz Foster and Chris Bush. It was embarrassing. So when Red Davis is not one of my favorite friends, but anyway, when they left, Bush says, "Who was that guy?" I said, "Well, he's the executive director of the party, and he has a lot of friends, and they set the rules on how the delegate selection is going to work for the convention, so you have to be nice to him, and I really appreciate you being so nice to him." He says, "When you were in high school, there was always one kid who you kind of took and opened the locker door, put him in the locker, and locked the door and locked it. I bet you that kid was in the locker." And Mike just says, "You know what? I think you defined him perfectly." We had so many wonderful times, and when we'd have these big parties in Grand Isle for the Tarpon Rodeo, and I would have one on Wednesday and on Friday night. And Friday night got to be out of hand. It'd be 600 or 700 people that I didn't even know coming in there and drinking booze and making a mess on my houseboat. So I decided I'm going to just keep the Wednesday party, and on Friday night I'm not going to have a party. So I wasn't even thinking about it. Mike and Alice come over. We're having a nice dinner. Security's outside in the police car, and they keep turning people away. People keep coming thinking I'm having a Friday night party. And I mean, like 150, 200 people they turned away, saying, "No, this is a private dinner. You're not invited to the party." And finally, some guy's knocking on the window and look, and I said, "Oh, that's Dick Egley. He's staying with me. He can come." But I mean, they were turning everybody away. But we had a lot of fun fishing. I bought his boat right after he became governor. I still have that boat. I love it. I've completely rebuilt it about 3 times, and I don't believe I'll ever change it. Not because it was Mike Foster's boat, because I just absolutely like the boat. So anyway, he came in and brought back the history of a lot of what LWCC was. We often were reminded during our board meetings why we here, why we exist. And it's not to be the most profitable company in the world. It is to be a stabling factor for the insurance markets in Louisiana. And the success of this company and the fact that today we're dedicating this learning center to Mike Foster is so appropriate and so right. Hey, Craig, and I'm so glad you all got across the bridge. If Mike was governor, we'd probably have that other 2 or 3 lanes in that bridge, because he'd be driving from, if he wasn't flying, from Franklin here. He'd realize how terrible it is. Hey, Randy, I'm so glad you're here. So it's so good to be here. And KRISTIN gave me a tour of the building. Y'all just better be glad John Kennedy is not on his board anymore. Because I know we would have never got to spend the money remodeling this place. And it is so beautiful, so modern, and so work appropriate. And I know that the company will be a lot more efficient because of the changes you have made in this workspace and the fact that we have this learning center, which Mike was always about learning. I mean, Steve talked about the community college system, and they just honored him again for that work. But I can tell you, as a businessman all my life, the change in the education system that he brought on was tremendous for business. He always knew business had to thrive for Louisiana to do well. And because of that, LWC earned its place in history by changing the world of insurance in Louisiana. 90% of the companies in Louisiana were in an assigned risk pool, and Mike was one of them, and knew that we had to do something different. He sent people all over the country looking at other ways to do it. He developed the concept of LWCC, got the state to back it because we needed some capital to be an insurance company. He weaned us off of the state and then came back to be our chairman. So what a great ride he had, what a great company he created, and I'm so proud to have been such a good friend with him and so many people at this company that I've spent 21 years working with. KRISTIN, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Boysie. And Boysie, you were a fantastic chairman of the board, too. And we miss you. And every day, the part of the success of LWCC is because of the things you brought to us. So we reached out to Boysie and we said, Boysie, what do you think about asking President Bush to make a few statements? And, we were just asking, we can't hurt to ask. And Boysie said, I'll see what I can do. About 15 minutes later, they got back to us and they said, sure, he'd be glad to. And I said, how did you do that, Boysie? He said, I started talking to him about rabbit hunting and how we had so much fun. And so it is my pleasure right now to introduce a video of President George Bush.
Greetings to those gathered in Baton Rouge for the dedication of the Mike Foster Learning Center at the LWCC. Governor Foster was a champion of economic development and dedicated much of his life to serving the state of Louisiana. This center is a fitting tribute to his legacy and the work of the LWCC. Laura and I send our best wishes to the Foster family, and God bless.
Very special. So thank you to President Bush for making this video for the Foster family and for LWCC. And again, thank you, Boysie, for making so many things possible over the years. Our entire LWCC family, including our board of directors, management, and employees, owe a huge debt of gratitude and offer thanks and appreciation to Governor M.J. Mike Foster, Jr. for his steadfast commitment and many years of support and service. We would not be who we are or where we are were it not for Governor Foster. His leadership, his loyalty, his patience, his drive made us who we are, helped us become better, helped our state become so much better too. We're proud to be able to honor him through the Governor M.J. Mike Foster Jr. Learning Center at LWCC. This incredible facility, which is opening today for the very first time, will be a premier destination in Louisiana for innovative learning, powerful collaboration, and creative problem solving. LWCC is Louisiana Loyal, a movement to celebrate and elevate Louisiana. Our purpose is to help Louisiana thrive, and our vision is to be a catalyst to elevate Louisiana's position in America. That work starts here. By having a best-in-class meeting facility, we can come together to make a positive impact on our state. We can also serve our employees, our policyholders, and our agent partners by providing thought leadership, training, and education. At the onset of the renovation of this building, we knew we wanted a learning and conference center. As it started to take shape and we started to see what it could be, we knew that it needed to be dedicated to Governor Foster and his legacy. LWCC has core values, and they are LWCC. Thought long and hard about what these core values should represent and who they should present us as we bring in new employees and have employees who stay with us for many, many years. But Governor Foster founds a lot of these things for us, and they're a direct reflection of the vision that he had for us. So I stands for innovation. You've heard the stories. He clearly was innovative, and LWCC is one enduring reminder of that. L stands for learning, and I'm so glad to hear them talk so much about all the things he learned, from getting his pilot's license to just about everything. He was always curious. He was always ahead of us. But I'll tell you what, a lot of people in the state also remember that he went to school. He went to law school at night while serving as governor. He did not want to not understand what those lawyers were talking about, and he didn't want them to be able to get in front of him or get in his way. Excuse me. Will, W stands for will, and everybody who knew Governor Foster experienced his sheer will to get things done. When he announced he was running for governor, no one thought he was going to win. And I'm pretty sure y'all told him that too. Guess what, though? He didn't let that stop him, and he won by a landslide. C stands for caring and commitment. He cared very deeply about our state. He cared very deeply about the people in it. He cared very deeply about employees and injured workers. And the last C in LWCC stands for connections. I think all the time about the powerful connections, even the ones right here in the room today, that have been formed because of him and his actions. Most of us would never have even known each other, much less come together to create something so spectacular if it wasn't for him. So we're so proud to have the Foster name permanently attached to us here at LWCC. On the screen, you will see the Foster Learning Center logo. The mark in the logo is a play on the safety stripes. Safety has always been a huge part of the mission of LWCC. These stripes create upward movement and momentum. They resemble a flag, tying in the governor's political achievements and his commitment to our state. To help us communicate the vision for the space and honor Governor Foster's legacy, we've created a short video we'd like to share with you.
Welcome to the Governor M.J. Mike Foster Jr. Learning Center at LWCC. This world-class facility, centrally located on the ground floor of our home office in Baton Rouge, will provide opportunities for continuous learning, innovation, and collaboration. An incubator for the ideas of tomorrow. With access to state-of-the-art technology, the Foster Learning Center at LWCC provides a place to gather and be a catalyst, elevating Louisiana's position in America. Governor Foster was not only the leader of our state, he was a dedicated businessman and lifelong champion of economic growth in Louisiana. In addition to spearheading the creation of LWCC in 1992 to make workers' comp coverage accessible to all businesses in the state, he elevated Louisiana through economic development, education improvements, and tort reform. LWCC will ensure Governor Foster's legacy lives on through the Foster Learning Center. Like him, we are cultivating powerful ideas towards knowledge, progress, and prosperity. Here we learn, here we grow, here we are Louisiana loyal, always.
As I was thinking about what Governor Foster meant to me and how I would describe him to others, you know, I thought about it and I'm like, he was a servant and he had a servant's heart, but he had the strength of a leader. He could do anything, and he did. But I'll tell you what, like everybody has said before, he would not be happy with us right now. He would not want us to be giving him all of this credit. He was quick. He was always quick to elevate me, others at the LWCC, share our successes, and he actually seemed to delight in them, although he did push us a little bit too. But today I'd like to honor and give special thanks to all the family members and the special friends of Governor Foster who are with us. We'd especially like to thank Miss Alice Foster and her and Miss Governor Foster's children, Murphy J. Foster III, Ramel Foster, Paul West, and Troy West. Unfortunately, Miss Alice was unable to be with us today, but we know she's watching. I'd like to invite to the stage Angele Davis, our board chair, and also Murphy Foster to accept a gift on behalf of the family. Every time I see Murphy, my heart catches. He's my neighbor, so it catches a lot. So welcome, Murphy. This is the plaque. We'll get you in the center. So from our board of directors, our executive team, and all of our employees, we thank each and every one of you for everything you did in supporting Governor Foster, because by supporting Governor Foster, you supported an awful lot of people, and we're really, really grateful to you for your support. And Murphy, we'd like to present this keepsake to you and your family, which features a Louisiana cypress wood, which if you look in the back of the room is the same wood that we have as part of our building today. And so I want you to please accept this as a sign of our appreciation for the lasting impact that he will have on all of us. And Murphy, we're delighted you're here, and if you would say a few words, we would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, KRISTIN called me about an hour ago and said, "Would you mind saying a few words?" The operative word in that sentence is few. I can remember like it was yesterday. I was working late at the office downtown Baton Rouge, and Dad called me, and he said, "I need to ask you a question." I said, "Sure." He said, "What would you think about your old man running for public office?" I said, "Are you serious?" And he said, yeah. I said, "Dad, you never even had a bumper sticker on any truck you've ever owned." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm angry, I'm concerned, and my local senator asked me to leave his office, wouldn't even talk to me about workers' comp, about tort reform." Ladies and gentlemen, I can tell you the soul of this man that decided to run for public office was about workers' compensation. Believe it or not, it was about workers' comp, tort reform, because as a businessman, he knew that this state would go nowhere unless we got that fixed, because it was severely broken. And so when I see this, and I think of LWCC, I think of Dad. It's so fitting. And so I want to thank you, KRISTIN, and all of the rest of you for honoring my father's memory and our family by naming this building what you did. I want to share something with you. I just finished reading a book yesterday, and when KRISTIN asked me if I'd say a couple of words, my mind immediately went back to this book. I don't know if you've read it yet. BOYSIE probably has. It was written by Admiral McRaven. It's called The Hero Code, and it's recent. He wrote another book earlier called Make Your Bed. Just great principles for life. But what he says in the Hero Code reminded me so much of Dad, and he lists 10 characteristics, and they are courage, humility, somebody who sacrifices and gives, integrity, they're kind and compassionate, perseverance, they never give up, duty, hope, humor. Dad had, for those of you who may not have known him too well, Dad had a great sense of humor, and forgiveness. I was the recipient of a lot of forgiveness growing up to this man. So it's with a great deal of honor and appreciation that we thank you for inviting us here and making us a part of LWCC. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Murphy. You know, he gave a book to the board toward the end of his time with us, and it was, who was the duck commander? What's his name? He said, "I want you to order this book for like 20 people." I said, "Okay." It was Duck Commander, and the name of the book was Happy, Happy, Happy. And he was telling us, you know, we need to be good to one another, love our families, take care of people. And I still have that book today, so I read it every once in a while and think about your dad. But thank you again for everyone who made this day special today and for your time today, both in person and virtually. I cannot express enough to you what an honor it's been to know him, to work with him, and what an honor it's been to share this day with all of you. We hope you will join us at the Foster Learning Center again very soon. If you'd like to stay informed about the Foster Learning Center and about LWCC's efforts to elevate Louisiana, we'd like you to check out LouisianaLoyal.com and sign up for the updates. Together, we are Louisiana Loyal always. And together, we can ensure Governor Foster's legacy lives on for generations to come. So thank you, everyone, for being here.